The aliens had been watching Earth for 50 years before they decided to make contact. They called themselves the Conclave of United Species, and they had seen many worlds rise and fall across the galaxy. They had watched humanity with great interest, taking notes on everything from human wars to human art. What they saw confused them deeply. Humans were strange creatures. They could build hospitals to save lives and bombs to end them in the same decade. They could feed the hungry and starve their enemies. They could write beautiful music and use it to march soldiers to war. The Conclave had never seen a species so full of contradictions. They did not know what to make of these puzzling beings on the small blue planet. Ambassador Cathrall was chosen to make first contact. He was a tall being with skin like polished silver and eyes that glowed a soft purple. His species, the Narration, were known for their patience and wisdom. The Conclave believed he was the right choice to handle such an unpredictable species. Cathrall arrived on Earth with a small team of diplomats. They landed in Geneva, where the United Nations had prepared a grand welcome. Leaders from every major nation gathered to meet the first alien visitors in human history. Cameras broadcast the moment to every screen on the planet. For one brief day, humanity seemed united in wonder. That unity did not last long. Within a week, the old divisions returned. The United States wanted exclusive access to alien technology. China demanded equal treatment. Russia suspected the aliens had secret agreements with Western powers. Religious groups across the world could not agree on what the aliens meant for their faiths. Some called them messengers from heaven. Others called them demons in disguise. Cathrall watched all of this with growing disappointment. He had hoped humanity might rise above its divisions when faced with the larger universe. Instead, they seemed determined to bring their petty conflicts to the stars. He wrote his first report to the Conclave with a heavy heart. Humans possess adequate intelligence, he wrote. Their technology is primitive but advancing. However, they lack the unity necessary for galactic participation. They cannot agree on even the simplest matters. They fight among themselves over resources they can easily share. I recommend observer status only. They are not ready to join the Conclave as full members. The Conclave accepted his recommendation. Humanity was given limited access to galactic communication channels, but nothing more. No advanced technology. No military alliances. No seat at the great table where the fates of worlds were decided. Most humans did not even notice. They were too busy arguing with each other. Then the Velthri King. The Velthri Dominion was everything the Conclave was not. Where the Conclave sought peace and cooperation, the Velthri sought conquest and control. They were a warrior species, tall and powerful, with scales like black armor and teeth like knives. They had conquered 100 worlds across 1,000 years. Now they were expanding toward the outer spiral arm of the galaxy, and Earth stood in their path. The Conclave sent warnings, but they offered no military help. Their charter forbade interference in the affairs of non-member worlds. Humanity would have to face the Velthri alone. Earth had 18 months to prepare. It was not enough time. The major powers tried to cooperate, but old habits died hard. The Americans did not trust the Chinese. The Russians did not trust anyone. European nations argued over command structures. Every meeting ended in deadlock. Every plan fell apart before it could begin. When the Velthri Vanguard fleet arrived, humanity's defense force was a mess. 43 ships from 6 different nations flew to meet them at the edge of the solar system. Their weapons used different calibers. Their shields operated on different frequencies. Their communication systems could barely talk to each other. They had trained together for only 3 months. The Velthri had 200 ships. They had been fighting together for centuries. The Battle of Kuiper that lasted 11 minutes. Captain Maria Santos commanded the Brazilian cruiser Esperança. She watched helplessly as ship after ship was destroyed around her. The American carrier broke apart in a ball of fire. The Chinese destroyers scattered like frightened birds. The Russian battleship made a brave charge and was cut down in seconds. Maria gave orders to retreat, but half her allies could not understand her transmissions. The frequency was wrong. The encryption was incompatible. Ships died because they could not hear the call to pull back. When it was over, 31 human ships were debris floating in the cold void. 12 survivors limped back toward Earth, their hulls scarred and their crews broken. The Valkyrie had not lost a single vessel. Ambassador Kethril received the news in his embassy on Earth. He felt sadness, but not surprise. He had seen this happen before. Young species often failed their first test. The galaxy was not a kind place for the weak or the divided. He began preparations to evacuate his staff. The Conclave had already written off Earth. They expected the Valkyrie to demand surrender and humanity to comply. The only question was how many humans would die before their leaders accepted the inevitable. But something strange began to happen. The survivors of Kuiper Belt returned to Earth as heroes. Captain Santos spoke at the United Nations, her arm in a cast and her uniform still stained with soot. She did not speak of defeat. She spoke of what she had seen in those 11 terrible minutes. "I watched ships from 6 nations fight and die together," she said. "Not for their flags, not for their governments, for each other, for humanity. We lost because we were not ready. But I saw what we could become. I saw soldiers from countries that had been enemies for generations reach out to save each other in the dark." She looked out at the assembled leaders, her eyes hard and bright. "The Valkyrie think we are weak because we are divided. They are wrong. We are divided because we have never had a reason to truly unite. Now we have one. Now we have them." The assembly was silent. Then, slowly, one delegate began to clap. Then another. Then 100. Then 1,000. Ambassador Kethril watched from the gallery above. He had written humanity off as a lost cause. But as he looked down at the standing ovation, at the tears streaming down the faces of former enemies, he felt something he had not expected. He felt doubt. The Global Defense Compact was signed 72 hours after Captain Santos spoke at the United Nations. It was not like the treaties that had come before. Those old agreements had been full of careful language and hidden loopholes. Countries signed them while keeping their secrets safe and their weapons ready. This was different. This was surrender. Not to the Valkyrie, but to each other. Every nation that signed the compact agreed to share everything. Not just soldiers and ships, but technology and knowledge. Research that had been classified for decades was released overnight. Weapons programs that had cost billions were opened to foreign engineers. Enemies became partners. Secrets became shared tools. The world had never seen anything like it. General Yuki Tanaka of the Japanese Space Defense Force was put in charge of the combined military effort. She was a small woman with gray hair and calm eyes. She had fought in no wars and won no great battles. But she had a gift that was more valuable than any medal. She could make people work together. Her first act was to bring the survivors of Kuiper Belt to a secret base in the Pacific Ocean. There were only 800 of them left from the original crews. They came from 12 different countries and spoke 9 different languages. Many of them had grown up being taught to hate each other. General Tanaka gathered them on the deck of an aircraft carrier and spoke simply. "You have all seen what divided humanity looks like in battle," she said. "It looks like death. It looks like defeat. We cannot change the past, but we can change what comes next. From this moment, you are not American or Chinese or Russian or Brazilian. You are human. That is the only flag that matters now." She pointed to the sky, where the stars were just becoming visible in the evening light. "They are coming back. And when they return, They will find something they do not expect. They will find us ready. They will find us united. They will find us dangerous. The survivors cheered. And then they got to work. Ambassador Kethrol had permission from the Conclave to observe, but not interfere. He spent his days traveling from base to base, watching humanity transform itself. What he saw defied everything he knew about species development. Russian propulsion. Engineers sat with American weapons designers, sharing equations and arguing over coffee. Chinese manufacturing plants retooled overnight to produce parts designed by European engineers. Indian software architects flew to Brazil to work with material scientists on new shield technology. Language barriers fell as translation programs improved. Cultural differences became strengths rather than obstacles. The ambassador's reports to the conclave grew longer and more confused. They are not merely cooperating, he wrote. They are integrating, merging. I have watched soldiers from nations that fought wars, within living memory, become brothers in the span of weeks. They share jokes. They share meals. They share their fears and their hopes. This should not be possible. Species do not change this quickly. Cultures do not blend this easily. And yet it is happening. He paused in his writing, searching for the right words. I believe I have made a critical error in my initial assessment. I assumed that human division was a permanent weakness. I now suspect it may be something else entirely. Their divisions forced them to develop skills that unified species never needed. They learned to communicate across barriers. They learned to find common ground with enemies. They learned to build bridges where walls once stood. These skills were useless in peacetime, when there was no reason to use them. But now, faced with extinction, they are deploying abilities they did not know they had. The Conclave received his report with skepticism. They had seen many young species face the Volturi. None had survived. But none had been human. The Volturi Dominion sent a message demanding unconditional surrender. They gave humanity 6 months to comply. Their terms were simple. All military assets would be handed over. All governments would be dissolved. Humans would become a subject species, working in Volturi mines and factories until the end of time. Earth's response was equally simple. One word, broadcast on every frequency in every language. No. General Tanaka used every hour of those 6 months. New shipyards opened on 3 continents. Factories ran day and night. Scientists worked until they collapsed, slept for a few hours, and went back to work. Resources flowed from nation to nation without paperwork or delay. Money became meaningless. Only results mattered. Captain Santos was promoted to admiral and given command of the fleet being built to face the Volturi. She chose her officers from every nation in the compact, caring only about their skills. A German navigator, a Nigerian weapons officer, a Korean communications specialist, an Argentine pilot. They had never met before. Within a month, they moved like a single mind. The ships they built were unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. They were hybrids, combinations of technology from every nation on Earth. Russian armor plating covered Japanese reactor cores. American targeting systems ran on Chinese algorithms. European shield generators drew power from Indian fusion plants. Each ship was a monument to what humanity could achieve when it stopped fighting itself. Training was brutal. Crews drilled for 18 hours a day, learning to work with systems from nations they had never visited. They developed new tactics, new strategies, new ways of thinking. They created a combat language that mixed terms from a dozen tongues. They became something new. Ambassador Kethrol watched a training exercise from the observation deck of a carrier. A mixed squadron performed maneuvers that should have been impossible for pilots who had only trained together for weeks. They moved in perfect harmony, anticipating each other's actions before they happened. How do they do this? He asked Admiral Santos, who stood beside him. She smiled. "We have been practicing this for 10,000 years, Ambassador. Every time we made peace after a war. Every time we built something together after we finished destroying. Every time we chose hope over hate. This is what we were building toward. We just did not know it until now." The ambassador looked at her with new eyes. "The Conclave believes you will lose," he said quietly. "They are already planning how to divide your system after the Valkyrie finish with you." Admiral Santos did not seem bothered by this news. "Let them plan," she said. "Plans change." The Valkyrie Second Fleet arrived on a cold morning in November. 400 ships emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the solar system, their black hulls blotting out the stars. Commander Deshrak stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Conqueror's Pride, and looked at the tactical display with satisfaction. His scouts had reported that humanity was still building ships, still training crews, still scrambling to prepare. The intelligence suggested they had perhaps 200 vessels, most of them untested. Half of what the Valkyrie brought to the fight. Deshrak expected an easy victory. He had conquered worlds with better odds than this. What he did not know was that the intelligence was wrong. Admiral Santos received word of the Valkyrie arrival while reviewing final preparations. She had 300 ships ready to fight. Not as many as the enemy, but more than the scouts had seen. The extra vessels had been built in hidden shipyards, launched in secret. Crewed by volunteers who knew they might not survive the day. She gathered her command staff in the war room of the carrier. Unity. The name had been chosen by vote. 10 million people had participated. Unity had won by a margin of 100 to 1. "They outnumber us," Santos said, looking at the faces around her. German, Chinese, American, Brazilian, Nigerian, a dozen. Nations represented in a single room. "They outgun us. They have more experience, better ships, and technology we still do not fully understand." She smiled. "But they do not have what we have. They do not have 10,000 years of practice at doing the impossible. They do not have the ability to surprise themselves. They do not have the crazy, beautiful, stubborn thing that makes humans human." She touched a button and the tactical display came alive. "We fight as one today. One fleet. One species. One chance. Make it count." The ships launched from stations around Earth, from bases on the Moon and Mars, from hidden docks in the asteroid belt. They gathered behind Luna, using the Moon's bulk to hide their numbers. 300 vessels of every shape and size. Each one carrying crew from a dozen nations. Each one a symbol of what humanity had chosen to become. Commander Deshrak moved his fleet toward Earth with confidence. His tactical officers reported the human ships massing behind the Moon. 200 vessels, they said. Maybe 250. Nothing to worry about. The two fleets met in the space between Earth and Luna. Deshrak's first surprise came when the human ships emerged from behind the Moon. 300 vessels, not 200. But that was only the beginning of his problems. The Valkyrie fleet operated the way it always had. Central Command issued orders. Individual ships followed those orders. It was efficient, disciplined, and predictable. They had conquered 100 worlds. This way. The human fleet did not work like that at all. Admiral Santos gave the initial orders. But after that, things got strange. The fleet broke into dozens of smaller groups, each one acting independently, but somehow coordinating with all the others. Ships from different nations flew in formations that had not existed 6 months ago. Tactics evolved in real time as commanders shared ideas across the battle network. Russian destroyers saw a weakness in the Valkyrie formation and exploited it without waiting for orders. A Chinese cruiser provided covering fire without being asked. An American carrier launched fighters to support a Japanese battleship that had not requested help. They moved like a flock of birds, each individual following simple rules that produced complex, beautiful, deadly patterns. Deshrak tried to adapt. He concentrated his forces, launched coordinated strikes, used the tactics that had worked for centuries. But the humans refused to fight the way they were supposed to fight. Every time he found a pattern, they changed it. Every time he exploited a weakness, they covered it. They were not fighting as a fleet. They were fighting as a single organism with 300 independent minds. 4 hours into the battle, a Valkyrie dreadnought broke through the main human line. It was one of the biggest ships in the Dominion fleet, armed with weapons that could crack planets. It headed straight for Earth, intending to force a surrender by threatening the human homeworld. 17 human ships moved to intercept. They came from 9 different nations. Their commanders had never served together before the war. They had no shared doctrine, no common training, no established procedures for what they were about to do. What they had was something the Valkyrie did not understand. Captain Wei of the Chinese destroyer Zhang. He saw the dreadnought's path and calculated an intercept course. Captain Morrison of the American frigate Defiance saw Wei's move and adjusted to provide support. Commander Okonkwo of the Nigerian corvette Unity Shield saw both movements and found the perfect angle for torpedo runs. One by one, 17 ships saw what needed to be done and did it, communicating through a mix of radio calls, visual signals, and pure intuition. The maneuver they performed had no name because it had never been done before. They invented it in the span of 30 seconds, each captain contributing a piece of the puzzle. It was insane. It was impossible. It was beautiful. The dreadnought never reached Earth. 6 hours after the battle began, Commander Deshrak sent a message to the Dominion High Command. His fleet had lost 60 vessels. The humans had lost 40. Every model, every prediction, every assumption had been wrong. They fight as one creature with many minds, he reported. We were never facing a fleet. We were facing a single enemy that happened to occupy 300 ships. I do not know how to defeat them. I do not know if they can be defeated. The battle ended 2 hours later when the remaining Valkyrie ships withdrew to hyperspace. They left behind 100 wrecked vessels and the shattered expectations of an empire that had never lost a war. Humanity had won. The news of victory spread across Earth like wildfire. In New York and Beijing, in Lagos and Mumbai, in tiny villages and enormous cities, people celebrated. Strangers hugged in the streets. Old enemies wept together. For one perfect moment, humanity was united in joy. Admiral Santos did not celebrate. She stood alone on the observation deck of the Unity, looking out at the debris field where so many had died. Human and Valkyrie alike, floating together in the void. 40 ships lost. 12,000 crew members who would never go home. Victory had come at a terrible price. General Tanaka found her there, 2 cups of tea in her hands. She offered one to the admiral without speaking. They stood together in silence, watching the stars. Do you think it will last? Santos finally asked. This unity we have built? Tanaka considered the question carefully. No, she said. Not forever. We are still human. We will find new things to argue about. New divisions will form. Old wounds will reopen. That is our nature. Santos nodded slowly. Then what was the point? Tanaka smiled. The point is that we proved it was possible. Every generation that comes after us will know that humanity can unite when it truly matters. They will have this moment to look back on. This victory. This proof that we are capable of something greater than ourselves. She sipped her tea. And the next time the universe threatens us, we will remember. We will remember faster than we did this time. That is how we grow. Not in a straight line, but in circles, each one a little wider than the last. Ambassador Catherall attended the memorial service for the fallen. He stood among thousands of humans from every nation, listening to names being read in a dozen languages. He watched people who had been strangers 6 months ago comfort each other like family. His final report to the conclave was short. "I was wrong," he wrote. "We were all wrong. We measured humanity by the standards of species who achieved unity through sameness. The Narran are united because we think alike. The Velthari are united because they obey the strong. Every spacefaring species in the conclave found unity by reducing difference. Humanity has done the opposite. They have found unity while remaining different. This should not work. Every model says it should not work. And yet it does." He paused, choosing his next words with care. "I recommend immediate elevation to full conclave membership. Not because they are ready by our standards. They will never be ready. But because they have something we do not. They have proven that unity does not require uniformity. That cooperation does not require conformity. That beings who disagree about everything can still choose to stand together when it matters most. I do not fully understand how they do this. I do not think even they understand. But I believe it is the most valuable thing I have ever witnessed." The conclave debated for 3 months before accepting Catherall's recommendation. Humanity was offered full membership, with all the rights and responsibilities that entailed. Ceremony was held on a space station orbiting Earth. Representatives from every nation stood together as Ambassador Catherall presented the formal invitation. General Tanaka accepted on behalf of all humanity. In her speech, she did not boast about victory or make grand promises about the future. She spoke simply, in the same way she had spoken to the survivors of Kuiper Belt all those months ago. "We have spent 10,000 years learning to destroy each other," she said. "We have gotten very good at it. But we have also spent 10,000 years learning to rebuild, to forgive, to find common ground with those we once called enemies. Today we join a community larger than any we have known. We bring our conflicts with us. We bring our differences, our disagreements, our long history of violence and reconciliation. But we also bring the thing that saved us, the ability to choose unity when survival demands it." She looked out at the assembled delegates, human and alien alike. "We do not know if we can maintain this unity in peacetime. We do not know if we will fall back into old patterns of conflict. But we know now that we can rise above them when we must. That knowledge is our greatest gift to our children. That knowledge is our promise to the galaxy. That knowledge is what makes us human." The Velthari Dominion sued for peace within a year. Their empire had never lost a war before, and the defeat at Earth shook them deeply. They sent diplomats to negotiate, and humanity surprised the galaxy again by offering generous terms. No demands for conquest or revenge. Only a simple agreement to leave each other alone. The lead Velthari diplomat met privately with Admiral Santos during the negotiations. He was an old warrior named Krathval, covered in scars from 100 battles. "I must ask you something," he said. "My people need to understand. How do you do it? How do you set aside everything that divides you? We have studied your history. We know how much you hate each other. How can you simply choose to stop?" Santos thought about the question for a long time. She remembered her grandmother, who had survived a civil war as a child. She remembered her father, who had served in a military that had once bombed his own family's village. She remembered the enemies she had made friends with, the walls she had watched fall, the hand she had shaken across old lines of blood. "We do not set it aside," she finally said. "We carry it with us. Every grudge, every difference, every old wound. We remember all of it. And then we choose, together, to build something bigger than all of it." She met his eyes. "That is the secret your intelligence never captured. Unity is not the absence of division. It is the decision to move forward anyway. It is the choice to care about the future more than the past. It is the hardest thing we have ever done, and we have to keep doing it every single day. But when we do, when we truly commit to it, there is nothing in the universe that can stand against us. Krathvel had no response. In his species' entire history, such a choice had never occurred to them. They had never imagined it was possible. Perhaps that was why they lost. The stars were full of dangers. Humanity knew this now. There would be other threats, other challenges, other moments when survival demanded the impossible. But they faced the future with something they had not possessed before, the knowledge of what they could become. The weapon that had saved them was not their ships or their technology. It was the simple, stubborn, beautiful choice to stand together. A choice made by millions of individuals across thousands of years. A choice that had been building toward this moment without anyone knowing it. Humanity's greatest weapon had never been technology. It had always been unity. And now the universe knew it too.